Hello, my name is Antonio Capulera. Throughout history, human beings have been fascinated by transformation. We have watched caterpillars become butterflies, acorns become mighty oaks, tiny streams become great rivers. We've watched civilizations rise from open fields, cathedrals emerge from stone, and masterpieces emerge from blank canvas. There's something deeply captivating about witnessing a thing become more than it once was. And perhaps that is why art has fascinated humanity for thousands of years. A painting is more than pigment, more than canvas, more than a brushstroke. A painting is evidence of transformation. It is the visible record of possibility becoming reality. Yet what fascinates me mostly is not the completed painting. It is the journey, the evolution, the countless unseen moments that exist between the first brushstroke and the final signature. Because every masterpiece begins in uncertainty. Every masterpiece begins unfinished. Every masterpiece begins as a little more than an idea carried quietly within the imagination of its creator. And that thought has stayed with me for many years. How can something so beautiful begin as something so ordinary? How can complexity emerge from simplicity? How can a blank canvas eventually become a face, a landscape, a memory, or even a story? The answer, I believe, is found within the process itself, not the destination, not the applause, not the finished result. The process, the patient accumulation of small decisions, the willingness to place one brushstroke beside the other, the courage to continue when the outcome remains unseen, the humility to accept that not every stage will be as beautiful. Artists spend much of their lives in that space, the space between vision and reality, the space between possibility and completion, the space where growth quietly takes place. Over the next several weeks, these paintings will travel that same path. They will begin as simple surfaces covered in possibility. They will encounter uncertainty. They will undergo revision. They will experience moments of harmony and moments of chaos. Colors will arrive. Shadows will emerge. Details will reveal themselves. What appears impossible today will eventually become inevitable. And that is one of the great mysteries of creation. The masterpiece often exists long before anyone can see it, hidden beneath layers, hidden beneath time, hidden beneath effort, waiting patiently for its opportunity to reveal itself. And perhaps that is why I continue to return to the studio, because every canvas offers the same invitation: to believe in something before it fully exists, to invest in something before the rewards are visible, to participate in the remarkable transformation that occurs when imagination, patience, effort, faith all work together toward a common purpose. Today, I invite you to join me on that journey. Watch carefully. Observe the changes. Observe the layers. Observe the subtle evolution taking place before your eyes. Because beneath every color, beneath every shadow, and beneath every brushstroke, a story is unfolding within you. And that story begins the same way every time, with a blank canvas and the decision to trust the process. One of the greatest misconceptions about art is that beautiful paintings are created through beautiful moments. In my experience, the opposite is often true. Many of the most beautiful paintings I ever completed spent a considerable portion of their lives looking completely unremarkable. Some looked unfinished, some looked confused, some looked as though they were moving backward rather than forward. Yet those stages were not evidence of failure, they were evidence of construction. The artist understands something the viewer does not. A masterpiece is not created in a single moment. It is ensembled through layers, one layer establishing structure, another creates depth, another introduces contrast, another creates harmony. Each layer contributes something unique to the final image. And yet, when viewed individually, many of those layers appear insignificant. And that fascinates me, because life often follows the same pattern, doesn't it? People admire confidence without seeing the uncertainty that preceded it. They admire wisdom without seeing the mistakes that produced it. They admire strength without seeing the struggles that forged it. They admire the final layer. Rarely do they witness the layers beneath it. Artists become comfortable with this reality. We understand that some of the most important work will eventually disappear. The early sketch will disappear beneath the paint. The first layers will disappear beneath the later refinements. Corrections vanish. Adjustments vanish. Entire decisions vanish. And yet their influence remains. The viewer may never see them, but the painting remembers. Every layer leaves an imprint upon what follows. Every decision influences the next decision. Every brushstroke alters the possibility that come after it. Nothing is wasted. That may be one of the most encouraging lessons the canvas has ever taught me. Nothing is wasted. Not the successful brushstrokes, not the uncertain brushstrokes, not even the mistakes. Given enough patience, when mistakes can become part of the masterpiece, it's beautiful. In fact, some of the most interesting passages within a painting emerge from moments that were never even planned. A color placed accidentally, a texture discovered unexpectedly, a direction revealed through experimentation. Artists often begin with intention, but they finish with discovery, and that discovery occurs when they remain willing to continue observing, to continue adapting, to continue learning, to continue painting. And these portraits continue to evolve before us. They pay attention to all of the layers, not merely the visible layer of paint, but the invisible layers as well. The accumulation of decisions, the accumulation of effort, the accumulation of patience. Watch how complexity emerges. Watch how harmony develops. Watch how uncertainty slowly transforms into clarity. Because clarity rarely arrives all at once. It arrives gradually, like dawn revealing a landscape, like a melody revealing itself one note at a time, like a portrait slowly emerging from the canvas. The remarkable thing is that every stage serves a purpose, even the awkward stages, even the incomplete stages, even the stages that appear to make little sense, perhaps especially those stages. For it is often in those moments that the foundation for future beauty is quietly being established. The viewer may not recognize it, the artist may not fully recognize it, yet the process continues, layer after layer, color after color, decision after decision. And eventually, almost without an announcement, the painting begins to reveal its intentions. The pieces begin to cooperate. The colors begin to harmonize. The image begins to emerge. What once appeared chaotic begins to appear inevitable. And that is the reward for patience. That is the reward for perseverance. That is the reward for trusting the process, because every masterpiece is ultimately nothing more than a collection of imperfect layers that refuse to give up on one another. If layers create depth, then light and shadow create meaning. Every artist eventually discovers that light by itself is not enough. At first, that may seem surprising. After all, we are naturally drawn toward brightness. We admire illumination. We seek clarity. We celebrate places where light reveals itself most boldly. Yet a painting composed entirely of light would possess very little depth, very little character, very little mystery. It is a relationship between light and shadow that gives an image its power. The two are often spoken to as opposites, yet I've never quite viewed them that way. To me, they are collaborators, partners engaged in a timeless conversation. One reveals, the other defines. One illuminates and the other provides contrast. One captures the attention and the other creates appreciation. Without shadow, light has nowhere to land. Without darkness, brightness loses much of its significance. The artist understands this intuitively. We spend countless hours observing the delicate balance between the two. The way a highlight dances across the cheekbone, the way a shadow settles beneath the jawline, the way a subtle transition can transform a flat image into something that feels alive. It is not merely technical, it is almost poetic. The canvas teaches us that beauty is often found within balance, not excess, not extremes, balance. As these portraits continue to evolve before us, you may notice that some of the most dramatic transformations occur not when the color is added, but when contrast is introduced. A shadow deepens, a highlight emerges. Suddenly the image begins to breathe. Suddenly dimensions appear. Suddenly the painting possesses a sense of presence that was absent only moments before. And what changed? Not the subject, not the canvas, not the artist, only the relationship between light and shadow. And that fascinates me, because perspective often works in the same way. There are seasons in which we only see the highlights. There are seasons in which we notice only the shadows. Wisdom, perhaps, is learning to appreciate both. Artist knows that shadows are not the enemy of the painting. They are part of the painting. In fact, some of the most important information exists within the shadows, the subtle forms, the hidden contours, the quiet transitions, the details that reveal themselves only to the willing to look closely. There's a certain elegance in that, a reminder that not everything valuable demands immediate attention. Some things reward patience. Some things reward observation. Some things reveal themselves gradually. The longer I paint, the more I appreciate those quieter discoveries, the soft transitions, the understated details, the moments that do not announce themselves yet somehow transform the entire composition. Many viewers focus on the brightest area of the painting. Artists learn to pay attention to everything surrounding it. The supporting elements, the subtle relationships, the spaces between. Because a painting is rarely defined by a single brushstroke. It is defined by the harmony of many. The harmony is not created through sameness. Harmony is created through balance, light and shadow, warm and cool, bold and subtle, movement and stillness, each one contributing something essential, each one serving a purpose. As these portraits continue their journey toward completion, I invite you to pay attention to those relationships. Observe where the light settles. Observe where the shadows gather. Observe how contrast creates character. Observe how balance creates beauty. Because the canvas is quietly demonstrating one of creation's oldest lessons. Not everything that appears opposite is actually in conflict. Sometimes the most beautiful results emerge when different elements learn to work together. There comes a moment in nearly every painting when something remarkable happens. The artist stops leading and starts listening. And for those who've never painted, that may sound unusual. After all, the canvas cannot speak, the paint cannot speak, the brushes cannot speak, and yet every artist all over the world understands exactly what I mean. Because there is a stage in the creative process when the painting begins revealing its own intentions. What started as a plan gradually becomes a conversation. The artist suggests, the painting responds. The artist adjusts, and the painting reveals. And together they move towards something neither could have fully anticipated at the beginning. I have experienced this countless times. An image begins with a destination in mind, a vision, a concept, an expectation, yet somewhere along the journey something changes. A color behaves differently than expected, a shadow reveals an opportunity, a texture introduces a possibility, a subtle detail appears where none was planned. Suddenly, the painting begins moving in a direction all of its own, not away from the original vision, but beyond it, towards something richer, towards something more complete, towards something waiting to be discovered. And that is one of the great joys of creation. Discovery. not merely creating what we know, but discovering what we did not know was possible. Artists spend much of their lives balancing intention with curiosity. Too much control can make a painting feel rigid. Too little direction can make it feel lost. Somewhere between the two exists a delicate balance, a place where discipline and imagination work together, a place where structure creates freedom, a place where technique creates opportunity. It is within that balance that many of the most meaningful discoveries occur. As these portraits continue to evolve before us, there will be moments when certain elements seem to emerge unexpectedly. A glance becomes more expressive, a highlight becomes more luminous, a feature suddenly feels alive, and those moments often appear suddenly. But they rarely are. They are usually the result of countless decisions accumulating beneath the surface. Tiny adjustments, small discoveries, minor refinements, each contributing something essential. Then one day, the painting begins to reveal itself, not all at once, but enough to glimpse into the future, enough to sense its direction, enough to recognize that something special is taking shape. I often think that patience becomes easier once we begin to show those glimpses. The destination remains distant, yet the path becomes visible. The artist begins recognizing patterns, relationships, possibilities. The painting begins offering evidence that the effort is working, not proof, evidence. And sometimes that is enough to continue, enough to trust, enough to take the next step. There is a certain humility required in that process, a willingness to admit what we do not always know at the very beginning, a willingness to remain teachable, a willingness to allow discovery to participate in creation. The longer I paint, the more I appreciate that humility, because some of my favorite passages within the painting were never part of the original plan. They arrived through observation. They arrived through experimentation. They arrived through remaining open to possibility. And that openness is one of the rare gifts that an artist can cultivate. The ability to remain curious, to remain observant, to remain willing to discover something beautiful where beauty was not originally expected. As we continue our journey together, pay attention to those moments. The moments when the painting seems awakened. The moments where possibility begins transforming into reality. The moments when scattered elements suddenly discover harmony. Because those moments remind us of something important. The artist may begin the journey, the brush may perform the work, the canvas may receive the color, but somewhere along the way, the painting begins to participate in its own becoming. And that is when the creation becomes truly magical. That is when the painting begins to speak. Every artist begins with a vision. Sometimes it arrives as clear as an image. Sometimes it arrives as a feeling. And sometimes it appears as nothing more than a faint spark of curiosity that refuses to leave us alone. Regardless of how it begins, the creative journey starts the same way, with the ability to see something that does not yet exist. And that ability has always fascinated me. An artist stands before a blank canvas and somehow sees a portrait. A sculptor stands before a block of stone and somehow sees a figure. A composer sits in silence and somehow hears the music. Creation begins with imagination, but imagination alone is never enough. Between vision and reality exists a distance measured not in miles, but in effort, not in time, but in persistence, and not in certainty, but in faith. Every artist eventually encounters that distance. Every artist must decide how to respond to it. The beginning is often very exciting. Possibility is exciting. Potential is exciting. The dream itself is exciting. But eventually, the work begins. The long hours, the small decisions, the repetition, the refinement, the countless moments that receive little attention and even less applause. That is where many people lose interest, not because the vision was unworthy, but because the distance between the vision and the reality feels larger than expected. Artists become familiar with that distance. We learn to respect it. We learn to navigate it. We learn that meaningful things rarely appear overnight. The portrait does not arrive in a single brushstroke. The landscape does not arrive in a single afternoon. The masterpiece does not arrive in a single burst of inspiration. It arrives through accumulation, through consistency, through the steady application of effort over time. And as these paintings continue evolving before us, you are witnessing that very accumulation. Not merely painting accumulating upon the canvas, but decisions accumulating upon the canvas, observations accumulating upon observations, understanding accumulating upon understanding. And the remarkable thing is that progress often feels slow while it is occurring. Yet when we look back, the transformation appears extraordinary. The painting that once consisted of scattered colors now contains form. The composition that once felt uncertain now possesses structure. A vision that once existed only in imagination now occupies physical space. The distance has been crossed, not through speed and not through shortcuts, but through perseverance. I think there is something profoundly encouraging about that, because it reminds us that extraordinary outcomes are often built from ordinary actions repeated faithfully over time. A single brushstroke may seem insignificant, yet thousands of brushstrokes can create something unforgettable. A decision made singly may become a very, very small and big decision later. Yet enough small decisions can transform an entire world, an entire direction. Artists understand this because we witness it every day. We watch simplicity become complexity. We watch fragments become harmony. We watch possibility become reality. And perhaps the greatest lesson of all of this, the distance between vision and reality is not an obstacle. It is a process. The distance is where the learning occurs. The distance is where the character develops. The distance is where understanding deepens. The distance is where transformation takes place. And without that distance, there would be no journey. And without that journey, there would be no discovery. And without discovery, there would be no masterpiece. And as these portraits continue taking shape, I invite you to appreciate not only what they are becoming, but also the path they traveled to arrive there. Because every finished work contains a hidden history, a story of effort, a story of patience, a story of persistence, a story of belief. And every brushstroke upon that canvas is part of that story. A reminder that remarkable things are rarely created all at once. They are created one faithful step at a time, one decision at a time, one layer at a time, one brushstroke at a time, until one day the vision standing before us is no longer imagined. It is real. There is a moment in every creative journey that receives far less attention than it deserves, and it's not the beginning, it's not the breakthrough, and it's not the triumphant conclusion. It's the decision to continue. Again and again and again. The world often celebrates dramatic moments. The grand unveiling, the standing ovation, the finished masterpiece hanging proudly upon the wall, yet artists know that most of the creation occurs far away from the applause, far away from recognition, far away from certainty. The artist is often alone with the work, alone with the canvas, alone with all these questions, alone with the possibility that what's being created may not yet resemble the vision that inspired it. Those are important moments, because those moments reveal something that talent alone cannot provide. Commitment. The willingness to continue even when the destination remains hidden. The willingness to continue even when progress feels slow. The willingness to continue even when the next steps are unclear. I have often thought that courage itself has been misunderstood. People frequently imagine courage as something loud, something dramatic, something larger than life. Yet many forms of courage are remarkably quiet, aren't they? Sometimes courage looks like showing up. Sometimes courage looks like patience. Sometimes courage looks like refusing to abandon a worthwhile pursuit simply because the outcome has not yet been revealed. Artists become familiar with this kind of courage. Every painting eventually reaches a stage where confidence is tested, a stage where the work appears unfinished, a stage where the artist must decide whether to trust the process or surrender to the frustration. The canvas teaches us that uncertainty is not a single stop. It is often your signal to continue on, to observe more carefully, to think more deeply, to remain present. As these portraits continue evolving before you, you may notice moments where progress seems almost invisible. A slight adjustment, a subtle refinement, a minor correction. The casual observer may overlook such changes entirely, but the artist does not, because the artist understands that excellence is often hidden with the small decisions. The difference between good and great is rarely dramatic. It is usually subtle, and more patient, a little more observation, a little more care, a little more willingness to continue. The remarkable thing about persistence is that it compounds. One effort builds upon the other. One lesson strengthens the next. One challenge creates understanding that did not previously exist. And over time, those seemingly insignificant improvements begin creating extraordinary results. Not instantly, gradually, quietly, almost imperceptibly, until one day the difference becomes undeniable. That is why I believe persistence possesses a certain beauty. It does not demand attention, it does not seek recognition. It simply continues moving forward. Steady, reliable, faithful. Artists learn to appreciate that kind of strength, not because it is glamorous, but because it is effective. The brushstroke that transforms a painting is rarely the first one. It is often one of thousands, each one building upon the one that came before it, each one contributing something meaningful, each one moving the work a little closer to completion. The same principle appears throughout creation. Mountains are shaped over time. Forests grow over time. Rivers carve stone over time. Masterpieces emerge over time. The process is patience, and perhaps we should be as well. As we continue this journey together, I invite you to pay attention not only dramatic changes, but also to the subtle ones. Notice the refinements. Notice the adjustments. Notice the quiet improvements accumulating beneath the surface, because those moments often tell the most important part of the story of perseverance, the story of commitment, the story of a creator who chose to continue, not because success was guaranteed, not because the path was obvious, but because something worthwhile was waiting on the other side of persistence. And that is the courage of the artist. The courage to continue. One brushstroke further than yesterday. One layer deeper than before. One step closer to what is possible. And often, that is all that is required. When most people look at a finished painting, they see the obvious things: the colors, the expression, the details, the highlights, the elements that immediately capture the attention. And understandably so, beauty tends to attract the eye. It invites observation. It rewards curiosity. Yet artists know that much of what makes a painting beautiful is often invisible to the viewer. Beneath every finished work exists a hidden framework, a quiet structure, an unseen architecture supporting everything above it. Before the colors arrive, decisions are made. Before the details emerge, foundations are established, and before harmony becomes visible, relationships are carefully arranged. The viewer sees the surface. The artist understands the structure, and that truth has fascinated me for years, because the most important elements are often the least visible. Balance, proportion, composition, rhythm, and flow. These qualities cannot always be pointed to directly, yet without them, the painting loses much of its strength. The same is true of many things worth creating. Strong foundations rarely demand attention. They simply perform their task, quietly, faithfully, without applause. The longer I paint, the more appreciation I develop for the hidden elements, the things beneath the surface, the things worth working for me behind the scenes, the things contributing to the beauty without seeking recognition for themselves. Every portrait you see before you contains those invisible contributions. Every successful composition depends upon countless decisions that most viewers will never even notice. And that is not a flaw. That is part of the design. The purpose of a foundation is not to be seen. The purpose of a foundation is to support. And as these paintings continue evolving before us, there are moments when visible progress appears dramatic. A feature becomes recognizable. A color suddenly comes alive. A likeness emerges. Those moments are exciting, yet they are only possible because of the work that occurred earlier. Work that may have seemed insignificant at the time. Small observations, careful adjustments, patient preparation. A visible breakthrough often arrives long after the invisible preparation has been completed. Artists learn to trust that reality. We learn that meaningful work is not always immediately rewarded. We learn that preparation often precedes revelation. We learn that foundations deserve as much respect as the finished structure they support. That lesson becomes increasingly valuable with experience. The temptation is always to focus on the results, to focus on outcomes, to focus on the invisible achievements. Yet, the canvas continually reminds us that outcomes are built upon countless unseen contributions. Every layer matters, every decision matters, every refinement matters, even when nobody else notices. Perhaps especially then. There is something noble about work performed without the expectation of recognition. Work completed because it contributes to excellence. Work completed because it strengthens the whole. Work completed because it is worth doing. The artist develops a deep respect for that kind of effort because we encounter it every day. A composition strengthened by a subtle adjustment. A portrait improved by nearly invisible correction. A painting elevated by details few people will consciously recognize. The viewer experiences that benefit. The artist understands the cause. And everywhere between the two, beauty emerges. That relationship never ceases to amaze me, does it? The extraordinary resting upon the ordinary. This is the visible resting upon the invisible. The masterpiece resting upon foundations established long before anyone knew what the final image would become. And as we continue this journey together, I invite you to appreciate those contributions. The quiet architecture, the unseen structure, the foundations beneath the beauty. Because the canvas teaches us a profound lesson. Not everything valuable seeks attention. Not everything meaningful demands recognition. Some of the most important things quietly support everything around them. And without them, the masterpiece could never exist. That is the gift of unseen architecture. The strength beneath the beauty. The foundation beneath the achievement. The invisible framework that allows possibility to become reality. And every great painting possesses it. There is a stage in nearly every painting when the color seems to be having an argument. A warm tone insists upon one direction, and a cool tone suggests another. A bold color may demand attention, and a subtle color may prefer restraint. At first, it appears unwilling to cooperate. Each one seems to possess its own agenda, its own personality, and its own voice. And for a time, the canvas can feel like a collection of competing ideas. Artists understand this stage very well. In fact, we expect it, because harmony is rarely present at the beginning. Harmony must be discovered. It must be developed. It must be earned. The remarkable thing about color is that no single color can create a masterpiece alone. Even the most brilliant gold becomes more beautiful when placed beside a deep shadow. Even the most vibrant blue gains strengths from all the colors surrounding it. Each color derives meaning from relationship. And that relationship fascinates me because it reminds us that beauty is often created through cooperation rather than domination. The most successful paintings are not those in which one color overwhelms the other. They are the paintings in which each color contributes something unique while remaining part of the greater whole. The artist's role is not merely to apply color. The artist's role is to create harmony, to guide relationships, to establish balance, to recognize when something is speaking too loudly and when something else deserves a voice. As these portraits continue evolving before us, pay attention to those relationships. Notice how every color supports one another. Notice how contrast creates energy. Notice how subtle transitions create elegance. Notice how the painting gradually becomes more unified. At first, the changes may seem small, a slight adjustment, a modest refinement, a gentle shift in tone, yet over time those changes accumulate. The painting becomes more cohesive, more confident, more complete. The individual elements begin serving something larger than themselves. That is when the transformation becomes truly fascinating. The painting stops feeling like separate pieces and it begins feeling like a single idea, a single voice, a single story. Artists spend countless hours pursuing that moment, the moment when everything begins working together, the moment when the composition finds its rhythm, the moment when the colors stop competing and start cooperating. And there's something deeply satisfying about witnessing that transition, because harmony possesses a certain elegance. It does not force, it does not demand, it simply aligns. The pieces discover where they belong. The relationships strengthen, the composition breathes, and suddenly the painting begins communicating something that none of its individual parts could communicate alone. That is one of the great mysteries of creation, the whole becoming greater than the sum of its parts. A phenomenon visible through nature, visible through music, visible through architecture, visible through art. Separate elements coming together to create something remarkable. The artist never controls that process entirely. We guide it. We encourage it. We participate in it. But harmony has a way of revealing itself in its own time. And perhaps that is why patience remains such an important companion to creativity. The painting cannot be rushed into harmony. It must arrive naturally through observation, through refinement, through understanding, and through trust. And as we continue this journey together, watch carefully for those moments. The moments when the colors begin to agree. The moments when the contrasts discover balance. The moments when complexity discovers order. Because those moments often signal an important turning point. The painting is no longer searching for its identity. The painting has begun to find it. And there are few things more beautiful than witnessing a creation discover what it was meant to become. Few things. That is the quiet miracle of harmony. The moment when many voices become one. The moment when many colors become a masterpiece. Most people imagine that paintings are created by brushstrokes, and they are, but not entirely. The longer I've painted, the more I've come to appreciate something that rarely receives attention: the spaces between them, the pauses, the moments of observation, the moments when nothing appears to be happening. Those moments are often far more important than they seem, because painting is not merely the act of applying color. Painting is the act of seeing. Before every meaningful brushstroke comes a decision. Before every decision comes an observation. And before every observation comes stillness. Artists spend a surprising amount of time doing nothing, or at least it appears that way. We step back. We look. We study. We consider. We listen. Not to words and not to instructions very well, but to the painting itself. The canvas is constantly providing information. Relationships reveal themselves. Imbalances become visible. Opportunities emerge. The artist learns to recognize these quiet signals. That ability rarely develops quickly. It requires patience. It requires humility. It requires the willingness to slow down enough to notice what others overlook. The world often celebrates movement. Faster, more, bigger. Yet the studio has taught me something different. Sometimes progress arrives through stillness. Sometimes the next step becomes clear only after we stop moving long enough to truly see. There is a certain wisdom hidden within restraint. The wisdom of not rushing. The wisdom of observation. The wisdom of allowing understanding to arrive before action. As these paintings continue evolving before us, you may notice periods where dramatic changes are absent, moments where the progress appears subtle, moments where the canvas seems to be resting. Do not underestimate those moments. Much is taking place. The artist is evaluating, considering, refining, and prepping. Some of the most important improvements occur before the brush ever touches the canvas again. That reality fascinates me because creation is often portrayed as action, yet much of creation is awareness, the ability to recognize what is needed, the ability to recognize what is not, the ability to distinguish between improvement and unnecessary interference. That distinction becomes increasingly important with experience. Young artists often feel compelled to add more color, more detail, more complexity, more effort. Experienced artists gradually discover another possibility. Sometimes the paintings improve when something is removed. Sometimes the painting improves when something is simplified. Sometimes the painting improves when the artist simply allows the room to breathe. There is elegance in that, confidence in that, a willingness to trust that not every space must be filled. Not every surface must be covered. Not every silence must be interrupted. The greatest compositions understand this principle. They create balance through contrast, activity and rest, detail and simplicity, movement and stillness, each supporting the other, each enhancing the other. Without quiet moments, dramatic moments lose their impact. Without stillness, movement loses its meaning. And without space, beauty can become crowded. Artists learn to appreciate that balance, to respect it, to protect it. And as we continue this journey together, I invite you to pay attention to not only what is being added to these paintings, but also what is being preserved. The open spaces, the quiet passages, the subtle transitions, the moments of restraint. Because within those moments exists a lesson the canvas has taught me repeatedly. Not everything valuable is created through action. Some things are created through observation. Some things are created through patience. Some things are created through understanding. And some things are created in the space between brushstrokes. The place where intention becomes clarity. The place where vision becomes direction. The place where the artist pauses long enough to truly see. And in seeing that, discovers what the painting has been trying to say all along. There is a moment that every artist waits for, a moment that cannot be scheduled, cannot be predicted, cannot be forced, yet sooner or later, if patience has been exercised and the work has been honored, it arrives. the painting comes alive. Not all at once, and not with fanfare, and not with dramatic announcement. It arrives quietly, almost as a whisper. One moment you are looking at paint, and the next moment you are looking at something wonderful. A presence, a personality, a story, a soul emerging through color, shape, and light. Artists know this feeling well. It is one of the reasons we continue returning to the studio year after year, because no matter how many paintings we create, that moment never loses its wonder. The transformation remains extraordinary. At first, a portrait is merely a collection of shapes. Then the eyes begin to form, the structure begins to settle, the relationships begin to strengthen, and somewhere along this journey, something changes. The painting begins looking back at you. That may sound strange to those who have never experienced it, yet artists understand exactly what I mean. There comes a point when the subject stops feeling like an arrangement of paint and begins feeling like a living presence within the composition. The image possesses character. It possesses energy. It possesses identity. The painting has crossed an invisible threshold. And once that threshold is crossed, everything becomes different. The artist no longer wonders whether the painting will emerge. The artist begins helping it emerge more fully. The questions change. The relationship changes. The journey changes. And now the task is refinement, enhancement, understanding. The foundation has done its work. The structure is standing. The composition has found its balance. The painting has discovered its voice. And now that voice begins speaking more clearly. As these portraits continue evolving before us, pay attention to those moments. They are easy to miss. The transition is often subtle. A slight adjustment around the eyes, a refined shadow, a carefully placed highlight. Suddenly, the entire painting feels different, not because a dramatic change occurred, but because enough small changes accumulated to create a transformation. That truth has always fascinated me. Transformation rarely announces itself while it's happening. It often reveals itself only after enough progress has accumulated. One brushstroke may seem insignificant. 1,000 brushstrokes can create something unforgettable. One decision may appear small. Enough decisions can alter an entire direction. The painting teaches this lesson repeatedly. Small things matter. Consistency matters. Patience matters. And perhaps, most importantly, accumulation matters. The masterpiece does not arrive through a single extraordinary moment. It arrives through countless ordinary moments working together. The same can be said of all excellence. The same can be said of understanding. The same can be said of nearly everything that's worth building today. And as artists, we become students of that principle. We witness it daily. We watch possibility become form. We watch form become structure. We watch structure become character. And we watch character become presence. And eventually, we watch presence become art. That journey never ceases to inspire me, because every painting serves as a reminder that remarkable things often begin quietly. They emerge gradually, patiently, one layer at a time, one decision at a time, one brushstroke at a time, until suddenly, what was once existed only in imagination stands before us in reality, alive, not because it appeared overnight, not because it was easy, but because the artist remained faithful to the purpose long enough to witness the miracle of emergence. And there are few moments more rewarding than that. The moment when the painting comes alive. Long before there were words, there were color. Before stories were written, before languages were spoken, before ideas were recorded, human beings were already responding to color, drawn to it, moved by it, inspired by it. Color possesses a language all on its own, a language that requires no translation, a language understood not only through the mind, but through the heart. Perhaps that's why color remains one of the most powerful tools available to an artist. It does more than decorate. It communicates. It suggests. It evokes. It whispers emotions that words sometimes struggle to express. A warm gold can feel welcoming. A deep blue can feel contemplative. A vibrant red can command attention. A gentle green can create a sense of calm. The remarkable thing is color achieves all of this without speaking a single word. Artists spend years learning this language, not merely how to mix it, but how to listen to it, how to understand its relationships, how to appreciate the subtle differences between what a color is and what a color feels like. Because those are not always the same things. As these portraits continue evolving before us, color begins assuming a greater role. The structure has been established, the forms have emerged, the composition has found its footing, now personality begins arriving. Warmth begins arriving. Atmosphere begins arriving. The painting begins expressing itself more fully. It is often one of my favorite stages because color has always been a way of transforming information into experience. A portrait may be accurate without color, yet color often provides character. A landscape may be recognizable without color, but color provides mood. A composition may be complete without color, yet color provides life. There is something almost magical about witnessing that transformation. The canvas begins awakening. The image begins breathing. The painting begins radiating an energy that was previously hidden beneath the structure and form. Artists learn to respect that power, not because color is loud, but because color is influential. A single adjustment can alter an emotional atmosphere of an entire painting. A slight shift toward the warmth, a subtle movement toward the coolness, a gentle increase in saturation. Suddenly, the painting feels different. The story feels different. The experience feels different. That sensitivity fascinates me because it reminds us that beauty often resides within subtle relationships, not grand gestures, not dramatic declarations. Relationships. One color supporting another, one tone strengthening another, one passage guiding the eye toward the other. The canvas becomes a symphony, each color contributing its own voice, each color participating in something larger than itself. The artist serves as both the observer and the conductor, listening, adjusting, refining, seeking harmony, seeking balance, seeking truth. And as these colors continue developing before us, pay attention to those emotions that they create. Not merely what you see, but what you feel. Notice how certain combinations create an energy. Notice how others create tranquility. Notice how the entire atmosphere of a painting can shift through seemingly minor changes. That is the gift of color. Its ability to influence without demanding. Its ability to communicate without speaking. Its ability to create experience that transcends explanation. The longer I paint, the more gratitude I feel for that gift, because color continually reminds me that not everything meaningful can be measured. Some things must be experienced. Some things must be felt. Some things reveal themselves through intuition rather than analysis. And perhaps that is why color remains one of the most enduring mysteries in all of art. It speaks a language older than words, a language of emotion, a language of atmosphere, a language of possibility, a language capable of transforming a simple canvas into something unforgettable. And when that language finally begins to reveal itself, the painting enters an entirely new stage of its journey, a stage where beauty is no longer merely taking shape. It is beginning to shine. There's something peculiar about artists. No matter how far we travel, the horizon seems to always move. A painting is completed and another idea appears. A goal is reached and a new possibility emerges. A lesson is learned and a deeper lesson reveals itself just beyond it. The journey truly never ends, and perhaps that is exactly why artists continue creating, not because we have arrived, but because we remain fascinated by what lies ahead. I've often thought about horizons. Standing beside the ocean, they appear fixed, certain, permanent. Yet the moment we begin moving toward them, they move as well. What once seemed distant becomes near. What once seemed impossible becomes familiar. And beyond it, other horizons appear. Creation often works in the same way. The artist begins by seeking improvement, then mastery, then understanding, then expression, then meaning, and eventually discovers that each destination is actually another beginning. The realization changes one way a view is created. The goal is no longer perfection, the goal becomes growth. Perfection is a destination that's forever retreats. Growth is available every day. Every painting teaches something. Every success teaches something. And every mistake teaches something. Every unfinished canvas teaches something. Artists who remain curious eventually discover that growth itself becomes one of life's great rewards. Not the applause and not recognition, not accomplishment, but a growth. The privilege of becoming slightly better than yesterday, slightly wiser, slightly more observant, slightly more capable of translating imagination into reality. There is a tremendous beauty in that pursuit, because unlike achievement, growth never becomes crowded. There will always be another lesson, another technique, another discovery waiting beyond the horizon. And as these portraits continue unfolding before you, I am reminded of that truth. Every painting becomes a teacher. Every painting becomes a classroom. Every brushstroke becomes part of an ongoing conversation between effort and understanding. The artist does not conquer the canvas. The artist learns from it, again and again, year after year, painting after painting. The horizon continues moving, and the artist continues following, not out of frustration, but out of wonder. Because there's something deeply inspiring about knowing that there will always be more to discover, more to understand, more to create, more to become. And perhaps that's one of the reasons I continue returning to the studio. Not because I found all the answers, because I have discovered better questions. Questions that invite exploration. Questions that inspire curiosity. Questions that encourage growth. The horizon possesses a certain wisdom. It never allows us to become complacent. It never allows us to believe that the journey is finished. It quietly reminds us that possibilities still exist, that opportunities still exist, that discovery still exists, somewhere beyond what we currently understand. And that is a comforting thought, because it means that no matter where we stand today, there is still room to grow, still room to learn, still room to create, still room to become. And perhaps becoming is the true work of the artist. Not merely creating paintings, but be creating ourselves, refining our vision, expanding our understanding, deepening our appreciation, learning to see beauty more clearly, learning to recognize possibility more readily, learning to trust the journey more completely. The horizon has taught me that lessons come in different ways and in countless times. It is never as close as it appears, yet it is forever as far away as we ever imagined. And that is enough, isn't it? Enough reason to continue, enough reason to create, enough reason to trust the process, enough reason to keep moving forward toward whatever horizon waits beyond the next brushstroke. I've noticed something interesting over the years. The paintings that end up meaning the most to me are rarely the ones that begin the easiest. They're usually the ones that make me work for them, the ones that challenge me, the ones that test my patience, the ones that refuse to reveal themselves right away. At some point, almost every meaningful painting reaches a stage where it asks a question. How badly do you want to continue? It's a fascinating moment, isn't it? The excitement of the beginning has faded. The finish line remains out of sight. The painting sits somewhere in between possibility and completion, and for a little while, nothing seems certain. I've learned to appreciate those moments not because they're comfortable, but because they're honest. Anyone can feel confident when everything is working. The real test arrives when confidence becomes a choice, when the outcome remains hidden, when the next step is unclear, when progress becomes difficult to measure. That's where character begins to reveal itself, not only in art, but in everything. The people I admire most are rarely the people who never encounter difficulty. They are the people who remain committed after the excitement disappears. The people who continue showing up, the people who continue building, the people who continue believing, the people who continue creating. There is something undeniably attractive about that kind of persistence. A quiet strength, a steady confidence, a refusal to surrender a vision simply because the path became complicated. Perhaps that is why I continue returning to the studio, because every canvas offers the same opportunity to trust what is possible before it becomes visible, to believe in something before it reveals itself, to continue moving forward when certainty has not yet arrived. And more often than not, those are the moments that lead to the greatest breakthroughs, not because they are the easiest, but because they ask something meaningful from us before they offer anything in return. The older I become, the more appreciation I develop for people who are willing to take the long way around. Not because it is easier, usually it isn't. Not because it is faster, it rarely is. But because some things simply cannot be rushed. A tree cannot be hurried into maturity. A river cannot be persuaded to reach the ocean more quickly. A masterpiece cannot be negotiated into existence. Certain things require time, and time has always been one of the creation's favorite tools to use. When I first began painting, I believed progress would be obvious. I imagined improvement arriving in dramatic leaps. A breakthrough here, a revelation there, a sudden transformation that would change everything. Sometimes those moments happen, but more often, growth arrives quietly. So quietly that we barely notice it while it's occurring. A slight steadier hand, a slightly more observant eye, a slightly deeper understanding of light, a slightly greater appreciation for patience. The changes appear small, yet over months and years they accumulate into something remarkable. And that realization changed the way I view progress. I stopped looking for dramatic evidence. I started paying attention to small improvements, because small improvements have a way of becoming extraordinary results when given enough time. Artists understand this, musicians understand this, and craftsmen understand this. Anyone who has dedicated themselves to mastering a skill eventually learns the same lesson. The long way around is often where real learning occurs. Not because the destination lacks value, but because the journey teaches lessons the destination never could. As these portraits continue evolving before us, what you're seeing is not merely paint accumulating upon the canvas, you're seeing time made visible. Days becoming weeks, observations becoming understanding, and effort becoming expression. The transformation feels dramatic because it is compressed into a single experience, yet every brushstroke required its own moment, its own decision, its own opportunity to contribute. And that is the remarkable thing about meaningful work. It rarely arrives all at once. It accumulates. The same way sunlight accumulates into the sunrise, the same way raindrops accumulate into a river, the same way individual notes accumulate into a song, slowly, patiently, faithfully, until one day what would once seem distance is standing directly before us. I think there is something comforting about that. A reminder that progress does not need to be dramatic or to be real. A reminder that movement doesn't need to be fast to be meaningful. A reminder that worthwhile things are often built one ordinary day at a time. Perhaps that is why I have grown so fond of the creative process. It continually reminds me that becoming is not an event. It is a practice of showing up, a practice of learning, a practice of refining, a practice of continuing. And while the world often celebrates quick results, the canvas continues teaching a different lesson, a quieter lesson, a deeper lesson, a lesson whispered rather than shouted, a lesson that some of the most beautiful things in life are created by those willing to take the long way around, those willing to trust the journey, those willing to trust the process, those willing to keep going long enough to discover what waits beyond the horizon. For all the lessons that art has taught me over the years, there is one lesson I value with every passing day: the ability to remain amazed. When people think about artists, they often imagine creativity, technique, imagination, expression, and those things certainly matter, but beneath all of them exists something even more important: wonder. The willingness to look at familiar things as though seeing them for the first time. I sometimes think about artists spending their entire lives practicing that skill, learning to see what others overlook, learning to notice what others hurry past, learning to recognize beauty hidden within ordinary moments. A ray of sunlight across the wall, a reflection of the clouds upon the water, the texture of weathered wood, the way evening light settles across the landscape just before sunset. These moments occur every day, yet many pass unnoticed, not because they lack beauty, but because familiarity can make remarkable things appear ordinary. An artist, well, we learn to resist that temptation. We train ourselves to observe, to slow down, to pay attention, and to remain curious. Curiosity has always felt like a close companion to creativity. The moment curiosity disappears, discovery begins fading with it. Yet the world remains full of discoveries, full of details waiting to be noticed, full of stories waiting to be told, full of beauty waiting to be appreciated. That reflection fills me with gratitude because it means inspiration is never truly far away. A painter can find it in a face, a shadow, a landscape, a memory, a conversation. Even silence itself can become a source of inspiration when approached with enough attention. As these portraits continue unfolding before us, I am reminded of that truth. Every painting begins as a mystery. Every painting contains surprises. Every painting reveals something unexpected along the way. No matter how many times I experience it, that process continues to amaze me. The transformation never becomes ordinary. The emergence never becomes routine. The act of creation never completely loses its mystery. And perhaps that is one of the lessons and reasons artists continue creating throughout their entire life. Not because they have solved the mystery, but because they remain fascinated by it. There's something deeply rewarding about approaching each new canvas with curiosity rather than certainty. Curiosity asks questions. Curiosity explores possibility. Curiosity remains open to discovery. Certainty often believes it already knows the answer. Artists learn to treasure curiosity because curiosity keeps the journey alive. It keeps the process alive. It keeps wonder alive. The longer I paint, the less interested I become in having all the answers, and the more interested I become in asking better questions. Questions that invite exploration, questions that reveal beauty, questions that encourage observation, and questions that remind us just how much remains undiscovered. That shift has changed the way I view creativity completely. The goal is no longer simply to create, the goal is to remain capable of wonder, to remain capable of appreciation, to remain capable of standing before a blank canvas and feeling excitement rather than routine. Because the moment wonder disappears, something essential disappears with it. The artist may still possess a skill, the artist may still possess knowledge, but the magic begins to fade. The wonder begins, to go. And wonder, well, it keeps magic alive. It keeps possibility alive. It keeps imagination alive. And perhaps, most importantly, wonder reminds us that there's still beauty left to discover, still lessons left to learn, still horizons left to explore, still paintings left to paint. For me, that is one of the greatest gifts art has ever offered. Not merely the ability to create, but the ability to remain amazed. And in a world that often moves too quickly, that gift becomes more precious with every passing year. There is a word that I've come to appreciate more and more with the passing years as well, and that is adaptation. At first glance, that may not sound particularly artistic. It sounds practical, almost ordinary. Yet the longer I've painted, the more I realize that adaptation lies at the very heart of creativity, because no painting unfolds exactly as expected. No canvas follows a script. No creative journey travels in a perfectly straight line from imagination to reality. Something always changes. The light changes. The color changes. The mood changes. The understanding changes. Sometimes even the artist changes. And when those moments arrive, the canvas asks an important question. Can you adapt? Not surrender. Not quit. Adapt. There is a profound difference between those things. Surrender abandons the journey. Adaptation continues the journey through a different path. Artists learn this lesson repeatedly. A color behaves differently than expected. A composition feels unbalanced. A detail refuses to cooperate. An idea that seemed brilliant in the imagination suddenly feels incomplete on the canvas. These moments are not failures. They are invitations. Invitations to observe more carefully. Invitations to learn something new. Invitations to grow beyond the limitations of our original expectations. The longer I paint, the more respect I develop for those invitations, because adaptation is often where discovery lives. The art begins with a vision. The process introduces new possibilities. The artist responds. The painting evolves. And somewhere along that journey, something remarkable occurs. The final result becomes better than the original plan, not because the original vision lacked value, but because the artist remained open to growth, open to learning, open to adaptation. That willingness has transformed many paintings throughout my life, and there have been moments when a canvas appeared determined to become something other than what I originally intended. Years ago, I might have resisted, but today I pay closer attention because experience has taught me that the process occasionally sees opportunities that I have not yet recognized. The artist and the painting begin a conversation. One suggests, the other responds. One adjusts, and the other reveals. And together, they move towards something neither fully understood at the beginning. There is a beauty in that partnership. A reminder that creativity is not merely an act of control, it's an act of participation. The artist participates. The process participates. The painting participates, each influencing each other, each contributing something valuable. Adapting makes that possible. Without adaptation, growth becomes difficult. Without adaptation, discovery becomes limited. And without adaptation, creativity loses much of its freedom. The canvas understands this, and nature understands this. Every living thing understands this. The strongest tree is not always the most rigid. It's often the one that leans and bends with the wind. The river does not conquer the landscape through force. It adapts, it adjusts, it finds a path forward again and again until eventually it reaches its destination. Artists learn to appreciate that kind of wisdom, not because adaptation is easy, but because adaptation keeps possibility alive. It keeps opportunity alive. It keeps growth alive. And as these portraits continue evolving before us, you are witnessing adaptation in action. Adjustments, refinements, new observations, new understandings. The paintings you see now are not identical to the paintings that first existed in imagination. They have evolved, and in many ways, they are stronger because of it. Perhaps that is one of the greatest lessons the creative process has ever taught me. Strength is not always found in holding rigidly onto the original plan. Sometimes strength is found in remaining flexible enough to discover a better one. The artist who adapts continues growing. The artist who adapts continues learning. The artist who adapts continues moving forward. And ultimately, that is what the creative journey has always been about. Not perfection, not certainty, not control. Growth, discovery, evolution. The willingness to remain open to what the next brushstroke might reveal. That is the art of adaptation. That is one of the most valuable skills a creator can ever learn. One of the most surprising discoveries I've made as an artist is that growth does not always reveal new things. Sometimes growth simply allows us to see what was always there all along. When I first began painting, I thought improvement meant learning something completely new, a new technique, a new tool, a new method. And certainly those things have value, but experience has taught me something different. Many of the greatest breakthroughs in art come not from seeing something new, but from seeing something familiar more clearly. The landscape has not changed, the light has not changed, and the subject has not changed. The artist has changed. And because the artist has changed, the artist begins noticing things that were previously overlooked. A subtle shift in color, a delicate transition of the light, a relationship between forms, a detail hiding quietly in plain sight. The information was always there. The ability to recognize it, though, was still developing. That realization has always fascinated me because it reminds us that understanding often arrives gradually. The world reveals itself in proportion to our willingness to observe it. Artists spend years training their eyes, not merely to look, but to see, to notice, to appreciate, and to understand. And there is a profound difference between looking at something and truly seeing it. Most people look at a sunset. An artist studies the temperature of the light. Most people look at a face. An artist studies the character within the expression. Most people look at a shadow, and an artist studies the story it tells about the light. Neither perspective is wrong, but one perspective notices more. The canvas teaches this lesson repeatedly. It teaches us that observation is a skill strengthened through attention, a skill strengthened through curiosity, a skill strengthened through time. As these portraits continue unfolding before us, there are details becoming more visible now that were impossible to see in the beginning. Not just suddenly appearing, but because enough understanding and accumulation has recognized them. That distinction matters. The painting is revealing itself. The art is revealing understanding. And somewhere between those two things, beauty begins to emerge. The longer I paint, the more gratitude I feel for that process, because it reminds me that growth is not always dramatic. Sometimes growth is quiet and subtle. Sometimes growth is simply the ability to recognize what was always present but previously unnoticed. A little more depth, a little more meaning, a little more beauty. a little more understanding. The world has not changed. The observer has. And perhaps that is one of the greatest gifts art can give someone. The ability to see familiar things with fresh eyes. The ability to discover wonder in ordinary places. The ability to recognize possibilities that once seemed invisible. The ability to appreciate what was always there, waiting patiently, waiting quietly, waiting for us to develop the vision required to see it. As artists, that journey never truly ends. There is always another to tell, another lesson, another layer of understanding just waiting beyond the edge of our current perception. And that is one of the reasons the creative process remains so rewarding, because every painting teaches us something about the world, and every painting teaches us something about ourselves. Not through grand revelations, but through small moments of recognition, moments when we finally see what was always there and wonder how we ever missed it. As our journey together begins drawing to a close, I find myself returning to the same place that every painting begins. Possibility. Not the finished painting, not the completed portrait, not the final brushstroke, just possibility. It is remarkable when you think about it. Everything we have witnessed throughout this journey began as just an idea, a thought, a vision, a possibility waiting patiently within the imagination. Before the colors, before the layers, before the challenges, before the breakthroughs, there was simply a blank canvas and a willing to begin. That willingness has always fascinated me because every act of creation begins with faith. Not necessarily faith that everything will unfold exactly as planned, but that faith is like a journey itself, and it possesses value. Faith that effort matters. Faith that the next brushstroke is worth taking. Over the course of this film, we have spoken about patience, about observation, about adaptation and perseverance and harmony, about growth and about wonder, yet there is one lesson connecting all of those ideas, and it is this: meaningful things take time. The forest does not always appear overnight, and a masterpiece is not planned overnight. The process asks something of us: attention, commitment, curiosity, persistence, and perhaps most importantly, trust. Trust that not every stage will be beautiful. Trust that not every stage will make sense. Trust that unfinished things should not be mistaken for finished things. Artists learn this lesson repeatedly. We stand before a canvas that appears confused. We continue. We stand before a canvas that appears uncertain. We continue. We stand before a canvas that appears unfinished. And we continue, not because we are guaranteed success, but because experience has taught us something valuable. The painting often knows more than it initially reveals. The process often knows more than it initially reveals. Life itself often knows more than it initially reveals. Some lessons arrive immediately. Others arrive years later. Some colors reveal their purpose immediately, and others reveal their purpose only after many additional layers have been applied. That mystery is part of the beauty. The longer I paint, the less interested I become in controlling every outcome, and the more interested I become in participating fully in the journey. Observing carefully, learning continuously, creating honestly, appreciating every stage for what it offers, even the difficult stages, especially the difficult stages, because many of the most important lessons arrive disguised as challenges. Many of the most valuable discoveries arrive disguised as uncertainty. Many of the most meaningful transformations occur long before they become visible. The canvas has taught me that, again and again. Every painting possesses moments of confidence and moments of doubt, moments of clarity and moments of confusion, moments of certainty and moments of adaptation, yet somehow layer by layer, the image continues emerging. The process continues unfolding. The possibility becomes reality. And as I look at these completed portraits, I'm reminded that every finished work carries a hidden history. Thank you for joining me.